After retirement, obviously now as your top says, you're repping the Performance Institute. You now have a role in the UFC. So you want to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. So if you think about it, and I know you got a performance coach. We'd love to talk to him. So we kind of the UFC created the Performance Institute really to replicate what every other professional sport has. They have a strength and conditioning coach, a dietitian, a sports psychologist. They have basically everything to support your MMA training, right? So if your MMA training's here, you got to have all those other services, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you need PT, sometimes you need chiropractic, sometimes you need an athletic trainer just to tape your ankle up. You need all these kind of discrete, like different things. And the most important thing, and the thing that the PI does the best, is put them together, right? So how does your S&C work with this? What time should you be doing PT? Should you be doing it before your training, after your training? What should you be eating when? Like for your hard sparring days, should you be eating X, Y? Like what are the fuel sources you're tapping into? And then if you think then you move past that, you say, well, how can you recover? What tools and modalities do you have for recovery so that you can get the most out of your next training session? So the sport of MMA is a little different than every other sport because there's almost three kind of distinct components you have to train, right? So there's grappling standing, so wrestling, more freestyle wrestling, grappling on the ground, also just wrestling, and then striking, so at distance. So if you look at clinch, distance, ground, those are skill sets you have to train a little bit every day, but you know what I'm saying? Like, and you have to kind of spar hard with wrestling, like just your wrestling. And then you have to put them together as well, right? So kind of figuring that out is hard enough. And then to try to figure out, well, when's the best time to do S&C, or what time of day should I work out if I'm fighting at 10 at night? What's the best way to get my body adjusted? How do I adjust the time zones? How do I adjust the altitude? So all those kind of things that we asked ourselves, that we were trying to figure out, well, that's what the Performance Institute does. Now, the Performance Institute's more of like a model, right? It's more of like a theoretical framework than a place, right? So we have one in Vegas, obviously, one in Shanghai, and we'll have one in Mexico City, and then hopefully we'll have several more in the next 5 or so years around. You get one in Europe. But the idea is really more the kind of knowledge that's going to be gained from actual scientists and high-level researchers studying the best way to train for MMA. What actually happens to the body when you train grappling, and what happens to the body when you fight, right? And what are the best ways to prepare and recover from that? So, I mean, it's kind of a lot, but the general, what I've been blathering on about is how the hell do you put it all together? You have a lot of different things you have to do. How do you put them together? And that's what we're doing here. And, I think about, we've been open 5.5 years. I'm so much smarter than I was 5.5 years ago. I feel like an idiot. Only now do I realize how stupid I am. Or just not, just how little I know, right? Like there's still more to know. There's still more to understand about human physiology. There's still more to understand about how skill acquisition works, right? Like how long should you be drilling a skill before it's wired in? How much sparring do you need, right? So sparring's super important, right? Because that's your real-time decision making. That is going to bring out your creativity and your coupling response. So if you throw a jab, I'm going to throw a look, whatever. If you think about the way you counter, right, you have to drill those things and ingrain them in a high stress, high speed, kind of high stakes scenario to some extent. But how often do you need to do that? Because there's a lot of risks that come with sparring, but the benefits, and then how much should you do it? Like when you spar, how often do you spar? How many rounds? And then how far apart do you space those days out? And then keep asking questions. Do you change that for, what point do you change that? 12 weeks out from a fight, out of camp, or right, like in the last 6 to 8 weeks before the fight?
Well, generally, I don't spar that often out of camp, you know what I mean? I love sparring, but I have to get told not to. So we generally spar every Tuesday and Thursday. On a Tuesday, we'll spar with boxing gloves, on, and on a Thursday we'll spar with the 8-ounce gloves with the fingers sticking out, the amateur gloves with head guards on.
Yeah.
And we'll do about 4 or 5 rounds both days. Well, saying that, no, we'll do 3 rounds in the cage on a Thursday and then 4 or 5 rounds on a Tuesday.
Okay, so, that's another thing that I didn't do. I would spar 8 rounds. Why? There's no 8-round fight. So if you're sparring 8 rounds, you're actually diminishing your output, right? I think it's better to spar under 5 and then go a little more like awareness and the ability to defend yourself and react too, right? So I mean that sounds pretty good. I don't know. So on Wednesday, do you kind of take that day a little lighter?
Yeah, we'll do like a technical session on the Wednesday morning, 2-hour technical session, and then I'll do my S&C in the afternoon.
Yeah, how taxing is that S&C?
It's quite taxing, like nothing. As I say, I agree with you there, Forrest. I realise how stupid I am when I sit down and speak to my S&C and coach and nutritionist. When I speak to Paul Reed, I realise like how thick I am. And he just blows me mind with the information, what he feeds me. And like at this moment, I'm on a deload week. And I know obviously when you was coming up, there was no such thing as a deload week. But now the sport's advanced.
I was at Extreme Couture and I heard a guy say deload week, and it's what I preach, it's what I want people to do. But in the back of my head, I was like, kids today.
Yeah.
Kids today.
I was going to say, he definitely got called a pussy.
I was like, a deload week. But no, he didn't. People were just like, oh, okay, all right, well, just do your 2 rounds and then, do some technical drilling, right? So, yeah. No, I mean, that sounds pretty reasonable. And, if you got good S&Cs around you, there's ways to potentiate yourself or not to blow yourself out for that sparring, right? So you can still work some maximal qualities without deteriorating your sparring with your S&C work.
Yeah, when I was a lot younger, I think I'd done a bit of damage to my body because I was cutting extreme amounts of weight when I was like 19, 20, 21 to make featherweight. I was cutting like 16, 17, 18, 19 pound overnight, and it was just draining my body. And in the end, we done a DEXA scan and it just said I should not be fighting at 145, and that was when we made the decision to move up.
Your lean mass was more than your lean body mass was more, and that's one of the tools we use, really, for the weight class fit, and that's the exact right thing. You're like, oh, I have more than 140, like if I have no water in me, I still have more than 145 pounds of lean tissue. But what age was your first pro fight?
17.
17. That is awesome. The only thing that I kind of worry about is guys that age cutting weight.
Yeah.
I don't know, like, I have a friend who wrestled his whole life, and he's like the smallest guy in his family, and he attributed it to cutting weight. Like, he's like cutting weight when he's like 14. I'm like, man, when I was 14, I was trying to play American football. I was eating like everything I could. I would like eat till I got uncomfortable and had to lay down. Every night I would just try to get bigger,
Well, so, the way you said you was 185 at, what was it, 16 or 14 or 16?
14.
Yeah, 14. I was, when I first started doing jiu-jitsu at 15, I was like 52 kilo.
So like 111 pounds.
Yeah. Well, that's how big I was when I first started jiu-jitsu. The first couple of tournaments I did were under 55 kilo. Oh, so under 120. Yeah.
Yeah. But, hey, man, that's the other great thing about MMA. It's a weight class sport, Sorry, but you can never be in the NFL. You can never be in the NBA, Probably never be in the majors. But, weight class sport, it kind of makes gives everybody kind of a chance to compete